Most people believe that estate planning is about paperwork, a will, a trust, a folder in a filing cabinet, gathering dust until the day it's finally needed. But after decades of watching families come together and fall apart over inheritance, I've come to understand something most people miss entirely. Estate planning was never really about documents. It was always about discipline, humility, and love. The senior men who leave behind not just money, but peace, are not the ones with the cleverest attorneys. They are the ones who had the courage to have hard conversations while they were still alive to have them. So today, we ask a question that most families avoid until it's too late. What separates a legacy that unites a family from one that quietly destroys it? Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." This is not just a lesson about ethics. It is a lesson about finishing well. A wise senior man doesn't just build a life of virtue. He closes that life the same way he lived it, with intention, clarity, and care for those he leaves behind. Seneca offers a companion truth. It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it. Nowhere is this more painfully true than in estate planning. Men spend 40 years building wealth with painstaking discipline, and then leave its distribution to chance, avoidance, or assumption. They will spend hours comparing interest rates on a savings account, but never spend one afternoon having an honest conversation with their children about what happens when they're gone. This is not weakness, it's avoidance. And avoidance, even from strong men, always has a cost. Psychologists call this present bias, our tendency to prioritize immediate comfort over future consequences, even when we know better. Talking about death, distribution, and family conflict is uncomfortable now, so it gets pushed to someday. But someday has a way of arriving without warning. There's also something behavioral economists call the endowment effect. We overvalue what we own, including our plans, even when they're outdated. A man may still be operating from a will he wrote 20 years ago, before a divorce, before a new grandchild, before a family business tripled in value. He assumes his old plan still reflects his current values. It often doesn't. And finally, there's loss aversion, the fear that talking openly about inheritance will create conflict, so silence feels safer than honesty. But here's the truth few people say out loud. Silence doesn't prevent family conflict. It only delays it and hands it to your children instead of you. Mistake 1. Treating the will like a formality. Many senior men write a will once, in their 50s or 60s, and never revisit it again. But life doesn't stay still. Marriages change. Health changes. Assets grow. Grandchildren arrive. Relationships with adult children evolve, sometimes for the better, sometimes not. A will that isn't updated isn't just outdated. It can become a source of confusion, resentment, or even legal battles. The Stoics remind us that everything in life is impermanent, and estate planning should reflect that same wisdom. A living plan requires living attention. This isn't about becoming obsessive. It's about revisiting your plan every few years, the same way you'd check the foundation of a house you intend to leave standing for generations. Mistake 2. Avoiding the conversation until it's too late. Here is one of the most painful truths in estate planning. More family relationships are damaged by silence than by money itself. A man may believe he's protecting his children by not discussing his will, thinking it spares them from awkwardness or grief. But in reality, silence creates assumptions, and assumptions, when unmet, create resentment. One brother assumes he'll inherit the house because he always took care of Dad. One sister assumes equal division because that's only fair. No one is wrong, but no one was told the truth either. And so, grief becomes tangled with confusion, and confusion becomes conflict. Epictetus taught, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Yet families rarely have the chance to react wisely to something they were never prepared for. A wise senior man protects his family not by avoiding hard conversations, but by having them with clarity and love, while there is still time to explain his reasoning. Mistake 3. Letting guilt drive decisions. Estate planning often becomes emotional, not financial. A father may leave more to one child out of guilt for past mistakes. He may avoid setting boundaries with an adult child who has struggled financially, quietly reworking his estate to fix what years of tough love could not. This is where self-determination theory becomes relevant. True fulfillment doesn't come from controlling others through money, but from empowering them toward their own competence and independence. A legacy shaped by guilt often creates dependency. A legacy shaped by wisdom creates growth. The wisest senior men ask themselves not, "How do I make everyone happy with this decision?" but, "How do I leave behind values, not just valuables?" Mistake 4. Confusing equal with fair. Many men believe that dividing an estate equally is the only way to avoid family conflict. But equal and fair are not always the same thing. One child may have cared for aging parents for a decade. Another may have built significant wealth independently. Another may struggle with financial responsibility. Rigidly equal distribution, without explanation, can sometimes create more resentment than a thoughtful, transparent, unequal one. The key isn't the numbers. It's the communication behind them. When children understand the why, they rarely resent the what. Mistake 5. Neglecting the emotional legacy. Perhaps the greatest estate planning mistake isn't legal at all. It's forgetting that inheritance is not just about money. It's about meaning. Grandchildren remember stories more than they remember stock portfolios. Children remember conversations more than they remember property lines. A wise senior man doesn't just leave behind assets, he leaves behind wisdom. A letter explaining not just what he's giving, but why. The values behind the decisions. The lessons learned through a lifetime of discipline, sacrifice, and quiet strength often becomes more valuable than the inheritance itself. A well-written letter can outlive a poorly divided estate. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." This isn't meant to create fear. It's meant to create clarity. If today were your final opportunity to speak honestly with your children about your wishes, your values, and your love, what would you say? Real wealth doesn't end at death. It either strengthens a family or quietly divides it. The choice is shaped long before the will is ever read. A wise senior man understands that legacy isn't a line item. It isn't measured in dollars, property, or possessions. It's measured in clarity instead of confusion, peace instead of conflict, wisdom instead of assumption, love expressed instead of love implied. The richest inheritance a man can leave behind isn't wealth, it's understanding. Growing older is not about becoming weaker. It's about becoming wiser. Wise enough to know that the greatest gift you can leave your family isn't a perfectly divided estate, but a family that still speaks to each other with love once you're gone. A well-prepared legacy isn't built in a lawyer's office. It's built in quiet conversations, written letters, honest explanations, and decisions made with clarity instead of guilt. As Seneca once wrote, "Life is long if you know how to use it." And perhaps the truest use of a long life is preparing those you love for the day you're no longer there to guide them. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. What is one estate planning lesson life has taught you? Has your family ever experienced conflict or unity around inheritance? What does leaving a legacy mean to you personally? Is there a conversation you've been avoiding that it might be time to finally have? If this video gave you something meaningful to reflect on, consider liking it, subscribing, and sharing it with another senior man who values wisdom over silence. Seek wisdom, protect your peace, Leave a legacy.